Yeah, Sönke, let's get started. If you can share your screen again,
Yeah,
please.
yeah. Let's start with a little introduction before I'm going to that IMO and international regulation topic. I'm Sönke. I'm working for NABU since almost 10 years on shipping, and but on shipping. So cruise is only a kind of a niche topic, but I mean, as you are also focusing on cruise, is of course mostly the one that you will get the most attention for. Um, I wonder when I try to reflect on that again and again, action, how to get press attendance and journalists joining or a lot of reports for this air pollution testings that we do since 10 years. It's almost boring for me, but we always get a lot of coverage, at least locally, so in the port cities where we are. So maybe we can share some experience on that, but just as a side note. And then let me start the presentation. Okay, that's the wrong way around. I have to share my screen first and then start the presentation. Otherwise, don't find the right button. Mm,
Yes, it's coming up.
it's coming. Okay, so um, let me start here. So shipping regulation. So on an international level, how is shipping regulated and what's going on there? Of course, this is not cruise specific, but I will try to yeah, make it cruise specific where it might be interesting for you. Okay, this is not really working. I cannot move the presentation when I'm in this program. Ah, what a mess.
Mm.
Okay, I will try it with another program. I will try to open a PDF instead of PowerPoint. Maybe it's also yeah, now it's working
Yes.
better. Okay, so just a little overlook. I will start with the international EU and IMO regulations, but if you like, I can also give a little update what is happening in Germany and what is NABU doing on cruise and activities there, because this is very different to each other. I mean, on the international level and also on the EU level, and also in the Mediterranean, where we conduct or we host kind of a network to push for a regulation-based measure. We are really focused on policy making and making change on regulation. In Germany, we are also working as kind of more like a little bit more like activists in ports sometimes. At least our local branch office do so. So yeah, an overview on shipping regulation. I mean, everybody knows that shipping is very regulated very poorly, and that maybe in the present it's a little bit changing due to better regional regulation, and also due just that IMO has at least set a kind of a goal for climate. From the goal perspective, it's not that bad. It more or less aligns with the Paris Agreement, 1.5 degrees warming, but yeah, in the detail, there's no regulation on the technical level how to get there. So there's a goal that is okay. It's not very ambitious, but it's okay. But yeah, it's the biggest question for us at the moment is how to get a basket of measures that will really yeah, keep the goal in reach, and also yeah, put the right pressure on the industry to yeah, to adapt. Um, so on the EU level, at first, I would say last year, 2023, was a very decisive year. Yeah, we had the Fit for 55 package on the EU level, where a lot of files were included, not only for shipping, but for shipping. Most important for us is the Fuel EU Maritime, where it first time in history set a kind of an intensity, greenhouse gas intensity limit for fuels. So the fuels had to go, or have to go down in the greenhouse gas intensity. And another very important thing is the obligatory use of SSE, so shoreside electricity, that is obligatory from 2030 for cruise ships and container ships and bigger EU ports. So there are some points that I would say were quite successful, but of course there are also a lot of shortcomings, especially because some of these modes will incentivize the short-term use of biofuels or LNG, And this is really it's really a big shortcoming that we try to lobby against at the moment on other fields. But then is also the alternative fuels infrastructure directive may be important for you looking at port cities. There's infrastructure that have to be built up, like short-side electricity. But unfortunately, there's even a kind of a mandate to build up LNG infrastructure, and also a kind of mandate for other maybe in the future green fuels. I would say most important for us from a climate perspective is the inclusion of shipping into the EU trading system for CO2, and this is also kind of a success that from 2026 it's also including methane and N2O emissions. So more or less all potential greenhouse gas emissions from ships are covered. And of course, this kind of polluter pays principle is a big leap forward. But yeah, let's see. I mean, it's not sufficient to fill the gap to green fuels or something. But of course, a price will incentivize efficiency and maybe also incentivize a shift to electricity or probable green fuels. If you don't understand something, please jump in directly, okay? Because I cannot see you. I can't see your hands. I can't see you waving or anything. I can also only hear you if you shout. So please do so if something is yeah.
I will jump in. This is Carla from Alaska. Is the mandatory shore power only mandatory to use if available, or if there's no shore power available, are they precluded from stopping at a port?
Yeah, that's a very good question. First, in the Fuel EU Maritime, the ships are required to use onshore power, and in the years, so the point number 2, the biggest ports in the EU, so the 10T ports and the big passenger cruise and ferry ports are required to have short-side electricity. So from 2030, the ship or the port have to pay a penalty fee if they don't connect. So if the ship doesn't connect, the ship has to pay the penalty. If the port doesn't have the required infrastructure, the port have to pay the fee. So it's almost covered from both directions.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Okay, so then jumping to the international IMO level. 3 weeks ago, we met in London for the MEPC meeting, and it was quite interesting to see that there is a general, a good, let's say, environment to move on with the climate measures. Of course, there are the typical suspects like China or Russia or others trying to block some of the movements. And of course, there are also some countries like Indonesia or Brazil that try to push certain incentives to go in the direction of biofuels, because of course that they see a kind of big potential in their countries to produce more biofuels. What of course would be a disaster if this would end up into shipping. But in general, I would say that it's quite positive. There will be quite sure a majority for a levy, so global pricing mechanism for CO2. Of course, it depends at the end on the price of that mechanism, how high it is. But it's also already secured that this revenue will be given to small island development states and other vulnerable countries to climate change, but also will be given back to the industry to kind of foster the transformation. So it's from a principle, it's quite good. But again, it will be hopefully agreed in April 2025, so next year already. So it's quite soon. In the meantime, there will be technical working groups on IMO level. I don't have to go into detail too much because it's very technical at the end. But on the pricing mechanism, it's quite positive, and it's very, very much positive that there is a very interesting coalition of Pacific Island states that suffer from climate change, but also a big flag state. So the Marshall Islands is the biggest flag state in the world. There's no jurisdiction where more ships are holding the flag up. So this is Marshall Islands, but on the other hand, they are also very, very progressive when it comes to climate policy. So there's interesting coalition of states. The EU countries are also behind this. So it's also quite good that in the EU some of the big let's say maritime powerhouses like Greece and Malta, they're kind of covered within the EU, so they cannot do too much lobbying to protect their industries, but are under the EU umbrella, which is relatively ambitious on that goals. And there's also a global fuel standard agreed on already that is more or less like the Fuel EU Maritime. So like giving a clear mandate every 2 or 3 or 5 years, it a little bit depends, to go down with the greenhouse gas intensity of the fuels. And then there's also a multitude of other topics that are discussed at these meetings. It's emission control areas, where we are working on as NABU. We are working on the Mediterranean and also on the Northern Atlantic from Portugal up to Greenland to establish these waters to emission control areas for sulfur and nitrogen and also for particulate matter. And that's also the question of scrubbers. I guess that most of you will know them. So also the cruise ships that are still running on heavy fuel oil are all equipped with this kind of evasion mechanism technology to where they just wash out the sulfur from the smokestack and dump this water into the sea. But there's also some other biodiversity topics on the table, also underwater noise and black carbon regulation. If one of you is interested in that, please write an email to me or anything. So I can also give you a deep dive in these topics, but let's keep it simple for now. I would make a pause on that before I will move on the question whether you want to know something about e-fuels, but because I think it's a little bit too technical. But on the other hand, I think there have to be some knowledge about it. But I will share. I will skip the slides very, very quick. Just run through them and say, okay, we talk about e-ammonia, e-methanol, and in theory we would also speak about e-methane if there would be a future for LNG. But I hope there's no future for LNG, so we don't have to treat this as a bridge technology where in the future there's an e-fuel that would substitute LNG. I don't hope so, but the slides are a little bit too technical, and it would take a lot of time maybe to
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Just to have an idea, what do you mean by e-fuels in general? Just a short.
Okay. Okay. A very short. E-fuel means, going back 2 slides, an e-fuel is a fuel that is produced from renewable energy. So in principle, it's climate neutral. So if we talk about shipping, the first run, I would say we need to electrify wherever we can or reduce shipping in general. Just don't ship too much around, change your production or consume patterns. This is also something that we work on, but not in a shipping team. But at the end, if you cannot electrify a ship because it's running too long distances or it's too big to carry a battery, so over Atlantic Ocean or Pacific Ocean, there you, even in the long run, you will need an e-fuel. This e-fuel can be burned in an internal combustion engine or used in a fuel cell. But in principle, these fuels can be produced climate neutral, but of course we need a lot of renewable energy to do so. So it's a little bit, let's say, a midterm, not a short-term solution at all. But just for you to know these words, e-ammonia, e-methanol, or e-methane, those are the ones that are discussed. And we in NABU are also part of this Say No to LNG campaign. I don't know if you heard of it. That's also the link here. Maybe for some of you, it could be interesting because they also give micro grants to people that do some little actions against LNG. Is it infrastructure? Is it shipping or whatever? So please visit the website, and if you like, you can apply for this micro grants. I know that there's some money left in that. So go for it if you think that Say No to LNG could be linked to your work, because Say No to LNG campaign is also working on cruise in an international sphere. Yeah, and then NABU activities. This is just some pictures. Yeah, we are doing, on the right hand side, you see the map. We're doing measurements, air pollution testings, and raising some local awareness. And on the left side, you see my colleague Lucas at the IMO building, so on the highest, let's say, level of international policy making for shipping. So I would say our work is covering everything from local action to international policy making and shipping. And then I guess you're all aware of this NABU cruise ranking. This is a very, very simplified way of talking about cruise, but it's, yeah, from a media perspective, it's very successful. This is why we carry on that, to be really honest about it. And but of course, you also see that it's because of the quite old structure, how we do it. For some of the cruise lines, it's already used for greenwashing if they are on the higher ranking. So it's a little bit questionable. But at the moment, we have not overthrown the methodology of it. Yeah, and then just some picture of the actions that we do. But this is more the local level in Hamburg or in Rostock or in German cities where we do some local protest actions or air pollution measurements. And then on the picture on the left upper side, we had a petition with around 20,000 people signed a petition against heavy fuel oil use in cruise. I think that there were also a lot of signatures from Spain and also from Italy in that. I don't know who shared them, but maybe our network partners in the countries. Okay, then let's stop the sharing because I feel a little bit bad that I cannot see you and your reactions, but only that. But it's yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sitting in the train station of Firenze, waiting for my night train, and I'm sitting in the most disgusting place. It's what is it? It's a Burger King. It's the only place where there's Wi-Fi and place to sit. And there's the music. I hope that you don't hear the music.
No, not at all. It has been working very well. Thanks so much for sharing.
Okay, sorry. For me, it's a little bit stressful because I have no noise canceling and hearing the music all the time. But okay.
No, excellent. Thanks so much for your presentation. We could hear you very well. We were all listening intently. So yeah, I'm checking if someone wants to ask any more questions to Sönke about what he just presented. Christian?
Yeah, I was just an additional question about the e-fuels that you say, because we were in a presentation shortly where they talked that basically all the private jets are going to transition to e-fuels. They want to use it for automobiles. And it seems to me, you said that they're building out infrastructure for e-fuels for cruise ships. Is there actually a realistic path towards using it at scale? Because it would use so much energy.
Yeah. So a perspective of NABU is there's no way for e-fuels anywhere else than in aviation and shipping. So no, not at all in energy or on the streets. There's on land it's quite clear you can cover everything by battery, even trucks. That's quite, from my perspective, it's quite true today. Maybe a few years back it wasn't, but now it is. So in aviation we will need it, unless we don't fly at all, would be also an option. But then for shipping, I'm quite optimistic that battery technology will fulfill the needs of a lot of ships in the future. When I've been at the Livorno activist group on Saturday and told them there will be a ferry from Livorno to Bastia running on a battery, and there's a what from Livorno to Bastia, 7 hours? No, and I said yes, it will. So for certain distances, I'm quite sure, especially if it's fixed and starting parts. And if there's some electricity to charge it. We see it in Norway. We will see it from Germany to Denmark in just a few months. There will be a new electric ferry. It's not Livorno Bastia. It's just 1 or 2 hours, not 7. But so I'm optimistic on that. But going beyond that, we are doomed, or we do. I would say on e-fuels. So it's on cruises. maybe there's consensus in this group. We don't need cruise, but we need international shipping, and there's no way around. So for big ships, we will need e-fuels, and they have to be produced from renewable sources. Maybe not in Western Europe, or at least not in Northwest Europe. Maybe in the south, where you have wind and some solar combined available. There are projects already. I know that there's one in Algeciras in Spain that was paid by Maersk Line, so a big Corriente line, single investment of 10 billion euro just for producing methanol for their ships. So there is movement already, but of course it's not sufficient for a short-term transition to these fuels. And then, Christian, you also mentioned infrastructure. Infrastructure to fuel ships is it's not fixed infrastructure. You know, it's so-called bunker ships. They go around and bunker fuel, so provide fuel to shipping. So it's not that much about fixed infrastructure. It's more floating. So most cruise ships have only, on their turnarounds, have only one bunker spot. So it's not that all cruise ports need it. It's just a fuel spot that will need it. But yeah, there is some infrastructure need.
Great, thank you. There's one question from Pau Valencia. In Valencia, let's take this question and then make sure also we get the update from Hans from Amsterdam. Okay, please, Pau. You're mute. You need to unmute.
Okay,
yes.
now. Hello, Sönke.
Hi, Pau.
Yes. I have just a question regarding if you have the chance to discuss or to comment or to hear something at European level about if you think that there are any implications for the port infrastructures regarding the new directive on air quality that has been passed in the European Union?
Good question. I mean, if we will have the new threshold, so it's the 20 microgram of nitrogen oxide per cubic meter. I've learned this week that in Italy there's not a single port city that will go under this threshold in the near future. So the ports might have the requirement to build up whatever it is. I would say on the short term, it's onshore power supply, so electricity, and not about fuels. But I mean, the air quality directive just forces them to get down the air pollution. That there's no suggestion for how they do it. I know that we had these kind of what is it? Clean air action plan is the English word, I guess. So there were a lot of cities in Europe that had to present these clean air action plans to the courts when they were forced to do so. And I know that in the Clean Air Action Plan of Hamburg, there was a lot of onshore power supply, catalytic converters on ships. So there were a lot of measures inside that were supposed to reduce air pollution from ships. But it's in the regulation itself, there's no measure mentioned. So it's just the threshold. But yeah.
Okay, just it was in case you could hear something. Thank you.
No, it's even worse. There seems to be a kind of exemption for ports in the directive. This is because the Chancellor of Germany has been the mayor of Hamburg before, and he kind of we know that he insisted on EU level, and there might be even an exemption for ports to take a little longer to clean up the air. It's a pity.
Okay, thank